Howdy, y'all. Welcome to The Rainbow Crossing, a podcast where Gen X and Gen Z discuss life's challenges and how we face them as queer people. We have these open conversations to have a sense of community through different perspectives. My name is Julio Guzman, and with me is...
Daniel. And with us today is our good friend, Rich Segal.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us
Hey,
today.
I am so pleased to be here. I have been watching since you launched. I have watched most of them.
Yeah.
I saw the one with our friend David. I have to finish watching that. But I think what you guys are doing is really interesting.
Thank
and
you.
I commend you for it. And, you know, your technical stuff is working too. So nice going to the technicians, whoever they may be.
Thank you. It's both of us, for sure. Yeah.
The 50 people that are out there that are helping with lights and microphones are okay.
Yes. The crew.
Good job, guys.
I wish. I need to properly introduce you, and I wrote all of this down because you're a very accomplished man. You have been a meteorologist for nearly 40 years, correct?
Since 1976.
Okay, yeah. Wait, 50 years.
Almost 50.
Wow.
There were periods in my life where I got out of weather, either because I wanted to, or because others wanted me to.
Yeah.
I took a little bit of a break back in the early 90s, partly because I wanted to move here.
Right.
Okay, and there were no weather jobs here, but I had to get here, and I'll explain that later. I also had grown disenchanted with media because I came from the Cronkite school where newsrooms were only responsible for information, not entertainment.
Right.
Then Spectrum started. They were called Time Warner Cable back then. I think there were 4 name changes, and I got back in, and I've been in ever since.
Yeah.
But technically my first weathercast was in mid-July of 1976.
I see. This is nice for me because usually when we're talking about this, Julio is like, "Oh, I was only 1 year old then." I was 1 year old in 1976. This feels really good for me.
I wasn't even a thought. I wasn't even a concept, honestly.
Not at that time, no, I'm sure. So I'm glad that I'm able to make you feel better about that. That may be the real reason I'm here. I don't know.
Yeah. No, not at all.
July 16th, 15th, 16th of 1976 on a Sunday night was the first time I did a weathercast. Wasn't supposed to last long.
Yeah.
You know, because I
How old
wanted
were
to
you?
be. How old am I now?
How old were you then?
Oh, then 76, 53. I was 22.
Oh.
My birthday is in November. So
Wow.
I was
Are you
20,
Scorpio?
I was 22, and I'm a Scorpio.
So am I.
Grandfather, father, son.
There you go. I love it.
You know.
And you're currently at KXAN here in Austin.
Yes.
Correct. You've been in Austin for over 20 years, 30 years.
I first visited in 88 and couldn't wait to get here. And then I finally decided that I'm leaving where I was to move here. And I arrived on August the 2nd, 1993.
Wow.
So I've been here ever since. And as every city goes through this, we've seen so many changes here. Some of them have been good, and then there are others.
Right. You are also the public address announcer for the University of Texas soccer and softball teams, correct?
I used to, yes, I'm still doing that. I will, if they ask me back, we'll start my 19th season of softball for UT.
Wow.
Hook 'em. In February. I hope to get to 20.
Yeah.
And that'll be enough. And then soccer was added. Soccer and softball are a little bit different from when I used to do volleyball and basketball, because for soccer and softball, you're not on the field like you are on the court for volleyball and basketball. So my voice started to take a little bit longer. My throat took a little bit longer to recover from having done so many basketball and volleyball matches. So now I have less stress on my throat because, talking is my moneymaker.
Right.
You have a great
I
voice.
was almost going to say my throat is my moneymaker, but that might have been a little bit too over the top.
Can mean different things for this audience. So you're a big deal in Austin. I mean, honestly,
Yeah,
you are.
for sure.
Used to.
Jim
Spencer's a big deal, and he's a big deal, capital B-I-G. I'm a big deal, capital B, small I-G. I have to look at it that way. He right now is still the dean of weathercasters, even though he's just a part-timer. But
Yeah.
hi, Jim. He watches.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I remember when I first met you, because it's been 15 years, maybe
Probably.
about 15 years. And I do remember thinking that you were a big deal. And I really, really paid attention to the news and the weather. And you were already our weather guy
well, thank
back
you.
then.
Thank
and
you.
continue to be. But
I also haven't met a lot of gay people your age. So to me, that's a big deal, you know?
All right. Well, thanks. 70. I'll be 71 next month.
Yeah, and I'm not around many, and you have great conversation and great stories.
I'll let you have that.
you answered one of the questions that I was going to ask, and I'm glad you answered it because, like with women, you don't ask gay men how old they are. And so you're 71, which puts you in the category of...
Elderly.
I was going to say baby boomer,
Yeah.
but
53.
Yeah, which unfortunately baby boomers have gotten a little bit of a bad name in recent years, as particularly I think with the Gen Zers.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
Why do you think that is?
I feel like a lot of Gen Zers want to place the blame somewhere, and they can't think of anywhere to put it besides the downfall from there, if that makes sense. But I think you're a great boomer. I don't come across a lot of boomers where I'm like, oh my God, I wanna be around them. It's more like, oh my God, get me away from them because they're saying things that are a little offensive.
See,
to
the
whatever.
thing about that is for me, it's very simple. I chose to not get old. Chronologically, I am, but in here, I sometimes feel like I felt when I was your age. I just don't want to bring the carpet in at 7:00 and go to bed. Except for those nights that I have to get up the next morning at 3:00 to go to work. But that's a different story. I just believe that you live your life for happiness. You don't grow old and crotchety. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be like I saw my elders. It's like, wow, these people are not having fun with their lives at all. And I wanted to continue to enjoy myself. And if I do that by hanging out with gentlemen, guys in their 20s and 30s, well, that's fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. And I always appreciate, there are a few friends that I have who date older men in my age group, maybe a little bit older than that, for the very same reason. These guys are having good times, and they are serious about things when they have to be serious. But, otherwise, they're not getting old before their time. And I didn't want to do that, and I still don't.
It's a conscious decision on how you act as you're getting older. Like you said, chronologically, you can't stop that, but you can very much mold how you're thinking and how you're feeling. And it is a conscious decision to I want to enjoy life.
You can learn a lot from people. Doesn't matter how old they are. I was telling you before, before we started to record this, I have a new coworker. He's 23 years old. And I am learning things about language from him and why he sometimes makes these allusions to an Apple Watch that I quite don't understand because, I don't have one. But he's teaching me a little bit about his culture.
Yeah.
And because the cultures are radically different. Now, on the other hand, he hasn't asked too much about me. But it's like, well, Tommy, what do you mean by that? I'm a little bit, I'm not understanding what you mean by that. I can't cite a specific. But it's fun to learn new things. Now, I don't carry that out into the community. That's just him and me talking. Let's go. That's his catchphrase. Let's go.
It's a lot of Gen Zers catchphrase.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, it really
well,
is.
good to know. It's good to know. But now he has. There are 6 people in our department. There's Jim, and then there are the other 4, Kristen, and then the guys, and the other guys are doing the let's go, and when we do the group chat on text, let's go. It's like, well, I guess I better.
You're like, where are we going?
Where are we going? It's like, okay, I better start doing this because I don't want to be left out of the group. So anyway,
That's so funny.
yeah, the only place where I haven't gone Gen Z is I still have an Android. So they don't like to, they don't really like doing group text. Apparently, there's something about the Android and the iPhone that are not compatible.
It's a green
You got
text
green
that
text,
ruins.
and I don't quite understand why that is. And somebody in the department told me, well, that's fixing the change, that Apple is going to do something or somebody is going to do something, and then you'll see, it's like it says, loved an image, loved an image.
Right.
Well, what do they sing that I'm not, that I'm just singing loved an image?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you might have to school me on that.
You'll see the little heart by that soon
that what it
instead of
is?
just loved an image.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's funny. I mean, that's kind of what we do here. I mean, we're very purposefully trying to share our different perspectives from a cross-generational point of view so that we ourselves, but also our audience, can see things from different generations. And that's where we're really excited to have you today.
I'm going to just say one thing to you, Julio. In a couple of the segments that I have watched, if I didn't know how old you were, I would have taken you for being someone older because of the way you think and the way you have been conducting yourself on these.
Thank you.
You have more of a maturity than most Gen Zers that I know.
I've always thought so.
I'm not trying to gild the lily. I just think that I've been like, wow, this is a guy that I'd love to hang out with. So, and you too.
Sure. Why not?
But I've known you for many years,
Right.
and I've always known
Yes.
how much of a wonderful man you are.
Thank you. Yeah, you don't know Julio well, and as someone who has been with him for 5 years now, I can also attest. Julio's a great guy.
Yes.
And I don't mind loaning him to you for an extended period of time.
He's always trying
perhaps.
to pin me out, and that's not happening.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
All right.
So,
Yeah.
when did you know you were gay? Obviously, at that point in time in the 50s, 60s, it wasn't in media. There were no gay people represented in television and film, and I imagine even books. So, when did you know?
I was born in Atlantic City, and I lived in a little city called Margate. And just before my 12th birthday, we moved to Philadelphia. And we were living in an apartment complex. Now they call them condos. I started thinking about my sexuality from a guy that lived on we lived on the 5th floor, they lived on the 4th floor, two brothers. I used to hang out with them, but one of them was exceptionally cute. Just gorgeous. Sandy hair, and he just had this great smile. And I started having feelings that I knew I wasn't supposed to have. And the reason for that is that, there were no gay people who I knew. I didn't know that I was feeling something that I supposedly should not have been feeling, but as it turned out, it was completely justified. Yeah. And the more I hung around him, the more I wanted to be with him. He was very straight. And then one time I did the grope, and boy, that was not the right thing to do at all. And that sent me scurrying back in, slammed the door and the other door and the other door and so many doors. And then nothing would happen again until I went to college.
So,
I did not come out, by the way, to anybody back then. You couldn't do that in 1965.
Right. That was your first attempt to act on being gay at a young age.
Yes.
What was your first successful attempt?
I went to the University of Missouri. I had to get away from, and there were times that I might have been ashamed to say this, but it's reality. Knowing that my father was macho man, military. When it was time to choose a college, I chose one that was far away from home. There were 4 schools that I applied to, and the one that accepted me first is the one that got me, and that was Missouri, University of Missouri, because I wanted to be a sportscaster. Anyway, while I was there, one of the first nights that I was there was a mixer. And I saw this guy standing over by himself, and I went over, started talking to him, and we talked, and then we went out later on. And he confessed to me, he was much more outgoing than I was. He confessed to me that he was, as he called it back then, a homosexual.
Yeah.
And I said, well, okay, so am I. Because I knew I had feelings for men more than I had feelings for women. And I thought, I always believe that you do whatever you have to do to make you happy within reason. I love men. I like men. I want to be around men. but I'm only going to tell a very few select people about that. So he and I started fooling around, and it was pleasurable.
That was the early 70s?
That was 71.
71.
Back then, you could live off campus. Lived in a dorm. He lived off campus. He came from a very well-to-do family, so he had a cottage, a nice little cottage, and I used to hang out there a lot on the weekend. It was fun.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so much
That
fun.
sounds amazing. It
You
sounds
know,
like peaceful. And
it was very peaceful. It's like, the door is closed, nobody's bothering us. I think in some instances you might say that, we were tramps with each other, but I had a good time and I enjoyed it. And then Sunday night would roll around. My roommate in the dormitory often wondered where I went. I said, I'm just hanging out with this person or this person and this person. And for a long time, he never knew. Eventually, as years passed, I eventually wound up telling him because he is my best friend.
Oh, wow.
So the guy's name was John. My roommate's name was Paul, but the guy that I was hanging out with, his name was John. And he was also a journalism major. Had a little Fiat and tooled around in it. He was so adorable. I struck the mother lode with him. Really did.
Yeah.
Fetching is the word that we used back then.
Would you consider him your first love?
Yes.
Yeah. What happened with?
Eventually, when we graduated, he, like I said, he was in the journalism sequence with me, although he was in advertising and I was in radio and television. And when it was time to graduate, we stayed at Mizzou. He continued to work in advertising, and I continued to work at the university TV station. And then I got the call to go to Wichita Falls. And he came with me. Like I said, he came from money. Oh, my goodness, he was a wealthy guy. And we were together for a few years, and then he lost his life in a car accident. It was raining, and skidded and went into a tree. And it was, probably the first devastating thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
But I survived it, but I did love him a lot. And I have never forgotten him. I always remember the smile. He made birthdays very special. Rose petals on the bed. You see this in movies sometimes. It's like watching, back then it would be considered a Hallmark movie moment. He just wanted to make things special, and he taught me a lot about humanity and how, just because you come from money, you do not have any higher standing. Everybody is on the same and equal footing.
I feel like that when things were more secret back then, things just felt more special.
Yes, yeah.
In a way.
There were a couple of people in Wichita Falls who I did tell and who I did introduce him to. We'd go to parties. Oh yeah, this is my friend. But there were like about 3 or 4 people, including the co-anchor, and I said, "Okay, I need to tell you that this is John, and John is, I guess you would call him my boyfriend." So,
What year was that?
this was when I went to Wichita Falls. It was 78.
78.
So 78, 79. So I systematically came out to a few people. I don't know if we called it coming out, but then you just told people that who you wanted to know.
Sure.
Say, hey, I've got this secret to tell you, but you can't tell anybody because if you do, it's going to be bad for me.
Right.
But I have a boyfriend.
The 60s and 70s are often characterized by a kind of a free love movement.
Depending on where you were.
Well, I was going to say, did that translate to your experience to where you could be a little more open?
Not in Wichita Falls.
Yeah.
As I told you earlier, the best thing that I could say about Wichita Falls is that it has a great restaurant chain that serves chicken fried steak. There is not much more that I could say about that city, because one of the worst things that happened in my life, because I still think it was because I'm gay, that I lost my job at the TV station because of that. I didn't like those people that were so closed off that they were missing out on things. Anyway, so I found another TV job in Denison. Over there, I was nobody, and then it was time to go to Austin, and that was the happy time for me. I have to tell you, while I was in Wichita Falls, I visited Austin for the first time in 1988. And I went to a bar that several people here will remember called the Boathouse. It was on Colorado Street between 4th and 5th. It would ultimately become that hot dog place.
I
Oh,
love that
okay.
hot dog place.
Yeah, sure.
And then I think now it's a parking garage.
Yep.
And I went to the Boathouse. I had a friend here. His name is Martin, straight, but he had a lot of gay friends. We went to Boathouse that night, and I was just so grateful for the fact that I am in a place with like-minded men. Look at all of these people who are having a great time. It is okay to be a gay man in 1988. And I couldn't wait to get here. I mean, I was, for a while, I'd come from Wichita Falls or Denison every other weekend.
Oh, wow.
Then it became every weekend. At the time, you could fly on Braniff Airlines from Dallas to Austin for $49. And I was making good money back then. And so when it got to be every weekend, you get here, you're leaving work at 10:30, you get to Austin at 2:30 a.m., and then you sleep a little bit, and then you have Saturday night and Sunday, and then I found that I was taking much longer to get home, and I would be driving late at night on 35, and it's like, oh my God, what happens if my car breaks down or something? And oh gosh, you're in the middle of nowhere. But once I got to Boathouse and visited Austin for the first time, I knew that I had to get here as soon as I could, because it was so much fun.
And would you consider that the moment you really first came out and you felt free to be yourself?
Yes. When I got here, I started coming out a little more, then a little more. And the thing that just was so gratifying is people were accepting. Nobody held it against me.
Yeah.
5 hours up the road, completely different. Here, just so much chill, and so much love and
Openness.
affection and openness. Yes, yeah.
People still experience that to some degree, depending on where they live. But that
That's how
was
I felt when I moved here.
sure, but that was everyone back then. If you come from a more open-minded liberal household, if you live in a bigger city, you might not experience that growing up these days.
Right.
But back then, it didn't matter if you lived in New York. It didn't matter who your family was. If you knew you were gay as a child, you stayed in the closet as long as you possibly could.
Yes.
And then the 80s started opening some doors to a
Yes.
degree. But also, the 80s for our community are extremely well known for being the HIV/AIDS crisis. What was that like for you living through that?
I could never understand why people didn't use protection. When John and I were together, it was understood that rubbers were there for a reason. We didn't call them condoms. I think we called them rubbers. That's what I'm calling it. And I continued to use them. I would not be pressured into having bareback. I was just not going to have that. Was not going to happen, and I was certainly not going to not wear one when I was the top.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense that if there's something there for you to protect yourself with, why you wouldn't use it. Other people didn't feel that way, and we lost way too many people because of that. It was very sad. I think I went to the funerals of 5 of my friends, and it's like, man, this was so avoidable, easy, didn't cost much.
Yeah.
The sex was flowing freely, and people were doing, some were doing the right way, and some were doing it not the right way, but they felt it was right for them. I didn't criticize because that wasn't like me back then. I didn't become a bitch until later on in life. But it's like I one of them who was more sexually active than anybody that I've ever met. And I said to him one day, Alan, why don't you do this? You're putting yourself at risk. And he goes, I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I enjoy it more than when somebody is wearing a condom. So, yes, it was happy time, sad time. More for a while, more sad than happy.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being an adult and losing 5 of my friends
Like, I'll
From
tell you this.
not being safe.
If I found out that you were and you weren't using one, I would be up your ass in a hurry about this and say, you need to be smart. You have such a long life ahead of you.
Yeah.
Don't be stupid.
Noted.
And the kids today do have a lot more options, obviously, with PrEP being a thing. But even still, that doesn't fully protect you from HIV. Then, of course, there are HIV medications that allow people to live long, healthy, happy lives. So there are a lot of things that are different now. However,
Modern medicine has given us an awful lot of good.
Yeah.
But there still is nothing like the condom.
right.
Love yourself. You know,
Yes.
practice those things. Would you ever want to do something to hurt yourself? I don't think so.
No,
So why
no.
would you even risk it?
Yeah.
Something that is often not talked about, especially on media when we watch TV shows or movies about the AIDS epidemic, and that is, why were people doing this, and did they not understand that condoms were there and were an easy fix,
Yes.
so to speak? And what you're saying is that they did know, but it just wasn't as pleasurable, which of course we hear all the time from men, both gay and straight. That's how a lot of women get pregnant, is because the man doesn't want to wear the condom. It's more pleasurable to him to not wear the condom. So it's not just a gay male thing to not want to wear a condom. But it is really interesting to hear that people in the 80s weren't just wandering around blindly, not understanding the risks that they were taking, not realizing that there was an alternative to it, and that you clearly were one of the smart ones.
The people who were fighting to get the message out that this is what was going on were just frustrated at one avenue after another by guys that said, this is not going to happen to me because this is not, this won't happen to me. I'm not doing it enough to have it happen to me. And it's like, oh my God, what is the matter with you? It's an attitude that just was very costly. And eventually you go from being sad to being angry. This all could have been avoided if only.
Yeah. I wonder if we had the internet back then and we had more access to information and people could more easily come together, groups of people, if that would have been the case, if people would not have understood, better understood.
Great point. That is a fantastic point. And the answer is probably yes.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people get their information, from sources that they trust, although now we're seeing there's more disinformation than there was before. But, back then when the technology first came out, it was used for the right reason. And I think that people who would have had that type of education from experts would have paid closer attention to the problem and perhaps would have changed the way they lived their lives.
Yeah. Speaking of the internet, how did you connect to gay people before the internet? And, as a Gen Xer, I lived my childhood without internet. But then once I hit 18, 19 or so, that's when it became a thing. And that's when I started coming out slowly. So I never had to meet anyone without the internet. It wasn't like it is now with smartphones and all the apps and everything. But I did have access to the internet when I wanted to start meeting other gay people. How did you do it before that?
The bars. I would spend Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday at oil cans. Well, first at Boathouse, and then when oil cans opened up and Boathouse was on the downslide, and then it was oil cans after that, and then you could park on Guadalupe and for free, and there was always a parking spot. And the bars were not as dramatic. There was a lot of drama at the bars, but not back then. And you would meet a lot of people. Am I wrong?
No, I agree. But now it's because there's so many other distractions, and back then people were just going out to connect and meet, and now that's not a thing.
And then I had friends who would introduce me to people. You actually had to have a conversation.
Exactly.
Because there was there was none of that. And so I met people that way.
Yeah.
I have a friend, and I'd like you to meet him. I think you guys would do well together. And most of the time it turned out all right. Sometimes it didn't. Sometimes it was a complete and total failure. But it was nice to be able to just talk to people, because I'm chatty. Nice to meet you. So that's how we did it.
Yeah.
but there was no Hotmail or AOL or
Yeah.
not for a few more years, and so you actually had to have face-to-face conversations with people, and you got to know them well, and you could figure out. Sometimes it would take less than a minute to figure out, I want to be with this guy, and then other times it would take 30 seconds to say, get out of here.
I think we all see, if we go to the gay bars enough, which actually neither of us do anymore,
Right.
but I think you see a lot of people who are on their phones, and being on your phone is one thing, but when you're at the gay bar, on your phones, and on the dating apps, you're on Grindr or Scruff or whatever, at the gay bar, and you're messaging someone who is in the gay bar, and it blows my mind. And that's not just gay people. That's where society has drifted, thanks to the magic of technology. But I wonder what it would have been like to have been gay at that point in time, and just to be there, and just to fully embrace your community and the interactions. And I feel like maybe your friendships and your relationships were stronger at that point.
Yes, because people were paying attention to you. You were
Right.
paying attention to people. You weren't paying attention to your phone. It's like when you go to the gym and you see a guy do a set of 10 somethings, and then he's on his phone and he's just going through Facebook. And then he does another 10 reps and he's looking at Facebook, and it's like, I don't understand. I don't take my phone into the gym, and I don't understand the people that do, unless they're looking at an app that is telling them how to do an exercise. The addition of the cell phone and all of the apps and all of that has caused a whole lot of negative, and I think in our community too. I think that when Grindr was first a thing, and I had never been on Grindr, I didn't think that it was something that would benefit me at all, because no. I just didn't. But I think in the beginning it probably did have its benefit. But sometimes you hear bad stories about guys who use other people's photos, and a guy that says he's 24 when he's actually 56, and a guy that says he's 9 inches when in fact he's a pencil. It's not the positive that people think it is.
I totally agree. I tell Daniel all the time,
Plus-
like, if I could just get rid of my phone and just live, that would be the dream.
Well, but you probably need your phone for things like work.
Definitely.
I mean,
But
when
that's not what it takes my time from. Usually I'm like, Instagram, and I'm like, okay, you put it down.
You know what? I'm as guilty about that too.
As we're talking through the timeline and the way the world has changed from when you were a kid till now, some big things obviously have happened, including the Marriage Equality Act in 2015. What was your immediate reaction to that? How did you process all of that?
When I was dating John, we actually had the audacity to talk about one night having children. Wouldn't it be great to be parents? Fast forward, and when it happened, when the bill was signed into law, I cried 1,000 rivers of tears, because I thought to myself, this would have been happening. This would have happened for us if he hadn't passed away.
Yeah.
And maybe we could have adopted children by now. I have a couple of friends who live not too far from here, Ted Burton and Aaron Upchurch, who got married that same day. And it was just wonderful watching them do that.
Yeah.
Something good finally happened for our community.
Yeah.
And this one has long-lasting positives attached to it.
Right.
And the people who don't understand what love is will never understand it. They should just stop talking, go about your wet life, let us live our lives. Some of the best parents that I know are 2 dads, 2 moms.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it was life-changing. It's like,
Absolutely.
I wish I could find a man right now, because I'd like to get married and just show people that, yes, this happened to me too.
Yeah. Gay dads, lesbian moms, I think, as you said, have the potential to make such great parents, because so many of us have longed to give love that we didn't necessarily receive as children. I see that so often in the friends who I know who are gay parents, and they have so much love for their children, and there's nothing attached to it. There's nothing there that their children could do that would remove their love for their children.
Not only their love, but their happiness.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of our friends who are parents are very happy, well-grounded people, and argue very little. And when they're with their children, I mean, their children are center. You know, they're the center of their attention, the apple of their eye. And our friends just make excellent parents.
And I don't know, I'm sure there's some examples of this, but I don't know of any gay parents who have had children and then have gotten divorced. Like, all the gay parents I know of are still together.
Yes.
Which I think speaks to your point of there's genuine happiness there. And to be able to share that happiness with a child. I didn't have an unhappy childhood, but I did have a childhood in the closet. And there's, as you well know, there's fear attached to that, and there's sadness and anger. And a lot of that can be directed to your parents, your family, even if they're not doing anything outright to force you into that closet.
Correct.
So these gay parents that we know, and that happiness that shines through them and now through their children, it's really wonderful to watch. And all of us would love to be in that same boat. Because we all, everybody on this beautiful panel today has so much love in their hearts.
Yeah, absolutely.
What challenges do you think gay men particularly face as we get older?
Companionship is going to be one issue. One of the things that I noticed, and a few of my friends who are closer in age to me than they are to you two, would always remark about how they thought that some of what they call the gay kids were too pretentious. I think the biggest challenge is, adequate housing too, because a lot of these men may not be well off, and so especially here in Austin, where the housing rents and all are just out the window.
Yeah,
that's going to be a problem. But the bigger one that I would be concerned with is companionship and loneliness. Are you going to live out the last years of your life with no friends? And this is a challenge that I'm going to face, because and I don't mean to direct this all at me, but I'm considering leaving Austin. I don't like living in Austin anymore. Austin has changed.
Yeah.
Some of it has been good, some of it is not. It's still too crowded. It is, well, for me personally, I can't stand the heat, so I'm going to get out of the kitchen.
Yeah.
I want to go to a part of the country where there are 4 seasons. So that's going to be the big issue for me. That is probably the most important too. I don't want to be lonely, and I want to be able to live in a nice, comfortable surrounding. And then, of course, there are those people who still don't understand that the gay people are not out to do anything more than to live the life that they want to live, be happy, help raise children. Just leave us alone. We're not here to take anything away from you. It's like the people that think that the Democrats are coming to take your guns.
Yeah.
Stop thinking that way.
Right.
It's not going to happen. We just want you to do something smart. So that would be it for me.
How do you feel knowing that, simply having lived your life, that you have made the road smoother for younger gay people?
I think maybe that I'm one of the lucky ones that never got into physical altercations about, because of my sexuality. I would try to have conversations, and some people you were able to, steer their thinking a little bit, but in a positive manner. And there are others that you just gave up on after about the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I would like to think that I have done my part to support everything that our community stands for. And I don't know, there may have been a few failures along the way, but I actually look up to the people who did get beat up in trying to defend And these were people that were much older than me.
Yeah.
Stonewall, people I didn't know, but who fought the good fight physically in addition to emotionally.
Yeah.
For me, it's more been about emotion than it has physical, because I don't like to fight.
Yeah. Do you have any regrets?
I used to have the one regret of not telling my parents. When I was a child, there was a word that was uttered a few times. The word is fegala. I didn't understand what it meant for a while until I then heard the word faggot, and I said, "Oh, that must be the Yiddish word for fegala." I mean, for faggot is fegala. I always thought that maybe there would come a point where I would tell my parents. And as they got older, I thought, well, maybe this is the time to do it. But I never got around to do it. Conversations with my sister led me to believe that let them be happy knowing you the way they know you, instead of giving them a reason to think that they did something wrong. Because sometimes, as you know, some of our friends may have come out to their parents, and their parents are just wringing their hands about, well, what did I did wrong to make you like this? It's like, well, you did nothing wrong. It had nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
I was glad I told my sister.
Is your sister older or younger?
She's younger. And I was so proud. My cousin's daughter came out to my cousin a few years ago, and I said, how did you do that? Where did you get the courage to do it? And she goes, you have to do it. And she encouraged, this was before my parents passed away. My cousin's daughter's name is Samantha, and I call her Sammy. And she said, you should tell your parents. There should be nothing left on the table by the time that, they're gone. It might make them happy to know that you have surrounded yourself with a wonderful group of friends, like-minded or otherwise, but who you are comfortable being yourself, being in your in your own skin. But I never got around to doing it. So that'll be one regret. The other regret, it has nothing to do with being gay or anything. It's just not embracing technology.
Yeah, I don't know if that's so bad though.
No, I saw Julio going around and setting up all the cameras, and you with the mic. It's like, oh my God, I'm just going to keep my hands on my lap. But yeah, the regret will be that my parents went to their grave not knowing how happy their oldest was because he is a gay man.
Yeah.
In part because he is a gay man, but more than half of it because of that.
Yeah. Any advice for younger gay men today?
Don't rely on the bars for, because it's different in this day and age than it was back then. Stay off the phone. Talk to people. Learn about them. Find out what makes them tick. Be yourself. Be approachable, and be nice.
Yeah.
Be kind. Don't ghost people. Don't be rude to people. It's how I choose to live my life, as I did, back then. The only thing there are times, Daniel, that I wish that maybe I had come out sooner. I don't know how that would have looked back then.
Right.
But I'm glad I did it when I got here, because this was the place to do it. Anyway, just be yourself.
Yeah.
Be yourself. And like I said, be kind, be approachable, help others.
Yeah. It sounds like a lot of what you say, Julio, honestly.
It is a lot of what I say.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I told you at the beginning, I've always been impressed with.
Oh, thank you.
But I was like, wow, he's not as young as he says he is. He has a different way.
25.
He has a 25. He has a different way of looking at life. It makes him older beyond his years, and that's a great thing.
Yeah.
I can't believe, there is going to be someone that you're going to sweep off their feet, and I hope that I know when that happens.
I've picked up a couple people, and I just put them right back down.
They weren't the right one.
They weren't.
Not
weren't.
yet.
No,
Yeah.
correct.
Not yet.
But
you're very kind too.
Well, thank
and
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love you.
Thank you. Rich, thank you. Thank you very much for
You
today.
have a great energy, and this was like my first time fully being in a conversation with you, or at least listening to who you were, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I was so pleased to have you ask me to do this, and I was a little bit nervous when I was driving over here, thinking, "Oh gosh, what are they going to ask me? What am I going to talk about?" And then I realized if you just be yourself and you talk about the things that have happened in your life and don't try to sugarcoat them, this is going to be a great interview, and I'm honored to be a part of this.
We're honored.
Definitely.
This was wonderful for us. I've known you for 15 years, and I got some stories from you today that I had not known. So this has helped with our other friendships friends who have been here too. It has added layers to these relationships of people who I consider us to be very close to. So this just brings us even closer.
And you also don't see a lot of different generations getting together to discuss what it was like for every single's experience.
Well, let me just say that in closing, you have a good thing with this show
Thank
that you do.
Thank you.
I hope you'll continue to do it. And, you know, like I said, I'm just so thrilled to have been a part of it. So thank you very much for having me today.
Thank you. And thank everybody for joining us today.
Yes.
Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.